We start with Mangalacharan prayers. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakarjatam Sagagana Raghunathanvitam Tamsa Jivam Sadhuvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sagitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagagana Lalita Shri Visakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Vade Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. I was actually thinking of talking about Tulsi Vivag and the background story about how that happened, how Tulsi ended up marrying Shaligram. Well, given that we're just only a few people, maybe we'll do it next week. Okay. So this week we'll continue reading Bhagavad Gita. So far what we've looked at is mostly the Lord started talking about the science of the soul, especially, that it is imperishable, and it keeps moving from one body to another and all that. So in that, along those lines, he continues to give more analogy and explains that again a little bit more. So we'll continue with verse 18, and we'll continue on this. Okay. Antavanta ime deha nityashokta saririnaha anasino premeyasya tasmat yudseva bharata. Okay, the material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end. Therefore, fight descendant of Bharata. Right. So the material body of this indestructible soul is sure to come to an end. Everybody will die, meaning the soul will leave the body at some point. So therefore, don't have to lament for it. So fight for it. Bharata, that's what the Lord is saying. We want to read the...
Yeah. The material body is perishable by nature. It may perish immediately or it may do so after 100 years. It is a question of time only. There is no chance of maintaining it indefinitely. But the spirit soul is so minute that it cannot even be seen by an enemy, to say nothing of being killed. As mentioned in the previous verse, it is so small that no one can have any idea of how to measure its dimension. So from both viewpoints, there is no cause of lamentation. Because the living entity, as he is cannot be killed, nor can the material body be saved for any length of time or permanently protected. The minute particle of the whole spirit acquires this material body according to his will. And therefore observance of religious principles should be utilized. In the Vedanta Sutras, the living entity is qualified as light because is part and parcel of the supreme light. As sunlight maintains the entire universe, so the light of the soul maintains the material body. As soon as the spirit soul is out of this material body, the body begins to decompose. Therefore, it is the spirit soul which maintains this body. The body itself is unimportant. Arjuna was advised to fight and not sacrifice the cause of religion for material and bodily considerations.
Exactly. So the key point here, as Prabhupada explains, is that the moment the soul leaves the body, it starts decomposing. Right? Until then, the blood is flowing, cells are getting generated, and oxygen is getting pumped into the bloodstream. All that chemical reactions are happening as long as that soul is in the body, right? And it is providing that consciousness. The moment the soul leaves the body, then it starts to decompose. So therefore, it is that is one. The second part is it's impossible to destroy a soul, right? So therefore, Krishna's point is, anyway, the soul is indestructible, and the body is bound to be, die anyway at some point. So what is there to lament in this war, right? So that's the argument the Lord is making in this verse.
The heart is present and working, functioning. Body is said to be alive.
The heart is functional means the soul is present.
Yeah.
If the soul is not present, then the heart won't function. Right?
But even if someone's mind is dead,
yeah, still the person
ventilator that they can be put on, and still the body is running.
Yeah,
but they are not functional.
Yeah, because the soul is there still. This person, this guy, the former Prime Minister of Israel, Ariel Sharon, he was in coma. I don't even know how much, for years. He was in coma.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. And he was kept alive through this artificial means.
Yeah.
But then after that, he left the body. So as long as the soul is there, then yes, you can probably pump oxygen or keep things working. But then once the soul leaves, there is no means to keep the body.
So in that case, the subtle body is gone.
No, subtle body is still there. Without subtle body will stay with the soul. It won't go somewhere else.
Okay.
It will stay with the soul.
Okay.
It may not be functioning as a system, but the soul will be surrounded with the subtle body always, until it is in the material world. Once it goes spiritual world, then there is no subtle body. Okay, we'll go to the next verse. Yayenam veti hantaram Ainam mayante hatam
Yaschenam manyante hatam
Ubhavutau na vijanito
Ubhavutau na vijnaito
Nayam hanti na hanyante.
Nayam hanti na hanyate.
Okay. Neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it is slain, is in knowledge. For the self slays not nor is slain. Okay, this is complex English, Prabhupada. Neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it is slain is in knowledge, for the self slays not nor is slain. Okay, let's read the purport. The Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, Mataji, you want to read? You can come here so the mic will capture.
You don't need light, right?
Yeah, it's okay.
When an embodied living entity is hurt by fatal weapons, it is to be known that the living entity within the body is not killed. The spirit soul is so small that it is impossible to kill him by any material weapon, as will be evident from subsequent verses. Nor is the living entity killable because of the spiritual constitution. What is killed or is supposed to be killed is the body only. This, however, does not encourage at all killing of the body. The Vedic invention is ma insects or never commit violence to anyone. Nor does understanding that the living entity is not killed encourage animal slaughter. Killing the body of anyone without authority is abominable and punishable by the law of the state as well as law of the Lord. Arjun, however, being engaged in killing for the principle of religion and not for whimsically.
Yeah. Okay. So whimsical killing is not recommended even in Vedas, because as per Vedas, the Vedic injunction, we should never commit violence to anyone. So I've given this example in the past as well, where a soldier was given weapons by the state to go attack an enemy, which is bona fide. But if the same soldier uses the same weapon to kill somebody in the country without authorization, then he will be penalized by the state law of the state. Same way, if the Lord is authorizing someone to go to war or to kill somebody, then that is bona fide. But you can't just go whimsically be killing somebody, or even including an animal or insect or anything for that matter. Every living entity has to be protected because they're all creations of the Lord. Right, so that's same thing we do see in our day-to-day life, where people killing anybody whimsically, they get punished by the law of the state. But if the same person goes on war with another country, then they are okay, even if they kill hundreds of people, because they are authorized to do so. The same way, if we follow the injunctions of Vedas, then we are protected. And if we don't follow the injunction of Vedas, then obviously we will have to suffer for those actions. And definitely animal slaughter is not recommended, especially in Kali Yuga, because we are actually sort of interfering in the journey of that living entity, right? Because there is a lease that's given to that soul in that body. So that soul has to live that whole life and then leave the body after it ages. If we go and interfere in that, now that soul's journey is interfered, right? It's interrupted. So which means now that soul has to now take birth again as the same body, similar body, whatever animal body, right? Cow or goat or sheep, to continue the remaining journey. That means now we're interfering in the law of the Lord's creations, right? So the nature's law. If we do that, then there is what is the consequences for that?
So if we do the same thing with plants, there is no consequences.
There is consequences for that also. But the situation is that unless, because we are interfering in that living entity also, so there is consequences. So what Lord has said is every living entity has to anyway survive on another living entity. And there is prescribed food source for every living entity. And for humans, plant-based food is the prescribed food. But if we cook for our own senses, then we will have to incur the sins by how we got that food into our house. Okay? But if we cook it for the Lord and offer it to the Lord and eat as a prasadam, then we don't incur the karma. Okay, so that is the only way we can avoid karma. Otherwise, we will incur karma.
There are sometimes when someone is got hurt in that way that they cannot be cured now. So they are killed so that they don't suffer much.
Say that again.
So
Euthanasia.
I was saying, like, let's say like an animal got hit somehow.
By a truck or something.
Yeah,
Okay.
and now they are suffering.
Yeah.
Like and they cannot be cured. Like,
Yeah. Okay. Understood.
so, like,
Is
to
it
end the
better to
suffering-
euthanize it or just
Yeah.
leave it to die? Right.
Yeah.
See, we are still interrupting in its journey. It is going through that suffering for a reason. It is better for it to burn it, right? So if somebody is going through a suffering, it is because of their past actions is that suffering is coming in. Now we're trying artificial means to saying, okay, I'm going to relieve you of this pain. Yeah, we may be able to do it. But now we're interfering in the law of nature's functioning.
It may feel bad that we are not compassionate.
True. That's a very edge case. I'm not sure what's the right thing there. But in general principles, if there's somebody is going through that, means they're paying their debts off. So it may be better off to just pay it off.
And then all that stuff that used to happen at that earlier sati, people just jumping into the fire.
So yeah, so that part I don't know what was the reasoning behind or how the point they were saying is in those yugas, if a horse is sacrificed, they used to have animal sacrifice, right? Ashwamedh Yajna, they do a horse sacrifice and so on. The Brahmanas would recite the mantra in a way that when the horse gets sacrificed, it gets a human body. Its journey is accelerated. And so it's not like a bad thing that happens to the horse. It actually a good thing happens so that it can get to a human body and traverse quickly rather than go through another many millions of species, right? So, but in current yuga, there are no brahmanas who can do such thing to elevate the soul to next level, right? We just don't have that type of brahmanas. That's why the Lord is saying no animal killing, because we cannot do such a thing to the.
I missed the.
Oh, sorry, Mataji, I muted. I because I was hearing some sound. Yeah, you have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I missed Mataji's question. What was about like a sati or something?
Yeah, let me. Okay, so she was asking. Then why would then there be this concept of, woman entering into the fire if the husband has died, the sati concept, right?
If can I speak about this? If you,
Sure.
I don't know much about from the Gita's point of view, but historically, there is not a lot of vidhan in shastras about this thing. It was practiced in some of the villages, so I would say that it would be nice to read some more history on it. It was practiced in a very limited capacity, and the whole, I think only Mahabharata has Madri's sati and one more incident I'm forgetting, but there is no sati widespread incident. So it was again one of those very edge cases that Prabhuji earlier you were talking about animal. So
Yeah.
same goes with Madri. Madri was very feeling very guilty. That's why she it was kind of suicide. She did that. So that is one thing we see. And yeah, so there is no widespread recommendation for sati from Shastra's point of view. So wherever it was being practiced, it was probably a lot other reason other than just the Shastra's prescribed way of letting go of somebody's
That
body.
was, and that too was a good point, Mataji. And that too, Matri's thing was her own decision.
Yes, yeah.
Not
That's
like
what.
somebody was asking her or forcing her to do it.
Exactly. You will see King Dashrath's all queens were survived after he died. They did not kill themselves. There are a
Stayed.
lot of
Kunti also
widows.
stayed. Kunti
Yeah.
Devi also stayed. She
Yes.
didn't do that.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that now that we are learning about Gita's one of the learning about this thing, it is a good opportunity for all of us to brush up our history a little bit and understand that a lot of things that we learned from our schools are kind of showing us very, very small picture of what actually happened. So just wanted to add my thing.
Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, good point, Mataji. Thanks for clarifying that. And generally, I think it was just somewhere in the middle, some bad culture creeps into the society, right? Which was not recommended in Vedas, not recommended anywhere. But then there's one person.
Yeah, I don't want not to derail this discussion on for today's one. But if you look at the today, there is a proper fully practiced necrophilia, which is like in our India's neighboring countries, where they just rip up the graves and they bring the women's dead bodies and they abuse that. So just by looking at this thing, like right now in 20th century, we can see that there were a lot of real evidence for a lot of women to practice these things, which has nothing to do with Hindu Shastras. Just wanted to say that.
Yeah, that's very good. And these type of bad cultures creep into the society because one person may have voluntarily did it, and then they say, "Oh, going forward, everybody should do it." Kind of thing comes in, right? So those are again, it's not recommended by the Vedas, and people fall into this trap, and it creeps into the society. Right.
So I have a bit of history there.
Mm.
I think so. When Abhimanyu's wife Uttara was bearing a child, she was not able to do that. She wanted to die because Abhimanyu died. But since he had a child, he was told.
Prabhuji, can you come closer to mic so we can all hear this, please?
So Abhimanyu's child was in Uttara's womb, and Uttara was actually wanted to also die because Abhimanyu died. Since she had a child who will be the lineage after Yudhishthir's family, so she didn't do that. So I think she was given a boon that not boon, like benediction that she will be again coming in the world and will have an opportunity to die. And there is in Rajasthan there is Rani Sati. She was like known to be an incarnation of Uttara, and she did that, and it was taken in a way that everyone should do it, and that became a norm. That's why it kind of started happening. But yeah, no one was forcing, like it was not supposed to be forced, but yeah, people like started forcing it. That's why it started happening. But I think like this is the like history of when the first sati pratha, like that thing started.
Yes. Yeah, I've never heard this, but maybe
Yeah, it's in my I know from Rajasthan.
I see. Okay. Okay, so let's go to the next verse. Na jayate mriyate katachin nayam bhutva bhavita varna bhuya Ajo nitya shashvato yam purano na hanyate hanya mane sarire. This is a memorizing verse, very important one.
What's the number?
220. For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. So if you see from, I think 211 onwards, the Lord keeps on emphasizing that the soul is always eternal. In multiple examples, multiple ways, he will keep on emphasizing it because it's so important for us to understand that the soul is eternal, and we have to internalize that, right? So, and in different ways, different analogies he gives on this. Okay. Mataji, you want to read? One of you online, or
Sure, I can read the next one. The purport. Quantitatively, the small atomic fragmental part of the Supreme Spirit is one with the Supreme. He undergoes no changes like the body. Sometimes the soul is called the steady or kutastha. The body is subject to 6 kinds of transformations. It takes its birth from the womb of mother's body, remains for some time, grows, produces some effects, gradually dwindles, and at last vanishes into oblivion. The soul, however, does not go through such changes. The soul is not born, but because he takes on a material body, the body takes its birth. The soul does not take birth there, and the soul does not die. Anything which has birth also has death. And because the soul has no birth, he therefore has no past, present, or future. He is eternal, ever existing, and primeval. That is, there is no trace in history of his coming into being. Under the impression of the body, we seek the history of birth, etc. of the soul. The soul does not at any time become old as the body does. The so-called old man, therefore, feels himself to be in the same spirit as in his childhood or youth. The changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree nor anything material. The soul has no byproduct either. And the byproducts of the body, namely children, are also different individual souls. And owing to the body, they appear as children of a particular man. The body develops because of soul's presence, but the soul has neither offshoots nor change. Therefore, the soul is free from the 6 changes of the body. In the Katha Upanishad, we also find a similar passage which reads, Na jayate riyate va vipaschan nayam kutaschan na bhavuva kaschit ajo nitya shashvato yam purano prano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. The meaning and purport of this verse is the same as in the Bhagavad Gita, but here in this verse there is one special word, vipaschit, which means learned or with knowledge. The soul is full of knowledge or full always with consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is the symptom of the soul. Even if one does not find the soul within the heart, where he is situated, one can still understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of consciousness. Sometimes we do not find the sun in the sky owing to clouds or for some other reason, but the light of the sun is always there, and we are convinced that it is therefore daytime. As soon as there is little light in the sky early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether man or animal, we can understand the presence of the soul. This consciousness of the soul is, however, different from the consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme Consciousness is all knowledge, past, present, and future. The consciousness of the individual soul is prone to be forgetful. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna. But Krishna is not like the forgetful soul. If so, Krishna's teachings of Bhagavad Gita would be useless. There are two kinds of souls, namely the minute particle soul, Anu Atma, and the super soul, Vibhu Atma. This is also confirmed in the Katha Upanishad in this way. Anur Aniyan Mahato Mahiyan Atmasya Jantor Nihito Guhayam Tam Akratu Pashyati Vita Soko Dhatuha Prasadan Mahimanam Atmanah. Both the super soul, Pran Atma, Paramatma, Paramatma, and the atomic soul, Jiv Atma, are situated on the same tree of the body, within the same heart of the living being. And only one who has become free from all material desires as well as lamentations can, by the grace of the Supreme, understand the glories of the soul. Krishna is the fountainhead of the super soul also, as it will be disclosed in the following chapters. And Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature. Therefore, he requires to be enlightened by Krishna or by his bona fide representative, the spiritual master.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mataji. So this is where, Prabhupada's purports are so detailed and up to the point, right? So he gives so much examples where he quotes Katha Upanishad, which has a very similar verse as this particular verse where we're talking. With caution one word which is different, right? With caution, which is knowledge, because the soul has all the knowledge. So that one thing we can see that in action today. When a calf is born of a cow, within next 5 minutes, you will see it will know how to drink milk from the udder from the cow. How does it know? Who taught it? Right? So that is because it has that knowledge built into the soul. That's how it gets that knowledge. Nobody is training it to go to a mother and drink the milk. Right? So that's the miracle that happens. Because the knowledge comes to the soul because it's built into it. So it knows how to function. It knows how to stand up. Within 5-10 minutes, it will be able to stand up. Where is that knowledge coming from, right? So because all this Big Bang theory just falls flat in that context, right? So the knowledge comes with the soul, and it's always conscious, right? So without the conscious is the symptom of the soul, right? If it is soul is present, then the soul or the body will be conscious. Not, it's a dead body. No consciousness will be there. And both Jivatma and Paramatma will be present in the heart. Both souls will be present. And they've given example like, in a tree, there are two birds sitting on a tree. One is always just observing what the other bird is doing. And while the other one bird is trying to eat the fruits in the tree, right? So same way in this body, the super soul just observes what the soul is willing desiring to do what it is doing, all that the super soul just observes. And he will permit also, he won't interfere in our free will, right? So he lets the soul, okay, you want to watch TikTok today? Okay, do it. Okay, so today you want to chant? Okay, chant, that's good. I'm happy, right? So he will not say anything, but he will let us function as we want to do, because that is what we desired to do in the first place to start with. That I wanted to be independent, I wanted to do what I want, I don't want any interference. I said, okay, fine, I'll let you, whatever you want to do, let you do. And but then he also says, okay, whatever you do, then there is a consequence for that. You have to learn to live with it. And that is where, people get frustrated saying, oh, why God is allowing me to do mistakes? Why can't God take away all the evil? All that conversation comes. But then if the Lord is interfering in our actions, saying, okay, if he's not saying, okay, you can't watch TikTok, then he's saying, oh, you're interfering in my free will, right? So that's why the Lord has created that clear boundary, saying, okay, whatever you want to do, I won't interfere. But when you develop the real relationship with me, then I will give directions, right? So if we really revived our relationship with the Paramatma, then the Lord will give instruction. He will take over our life. He will maybe take away TikTok from us, because he knows, okay, it is not good for you. You are fully surrendered. Now I have to take away all these obstacles in your path. So I'm going to take TikTok away from you. A random example I'm giving. So like that, Lord will take away the distractions in our path. Maya will try to pull us down, but because we are fully surrendered to the Lord, he will slowly start taking away this distraction so that we can more and more get involved with the Lord, reviving the relationship with the Lord. Right. So until then, we're in the mix. We're just starting the journey, right? So we're starting to learn, okay, there is Paramatma, I am Jivatma. So okay, I want to revive the relationship with the Lord. It's just the saying, I'm going to kindergarten school now. I want to get a degree. Right? So now we work towards it, get to first grade, second grade, third grade. Eventually we can get to PhD, right? So, but it takes efforts. It's not overnight I can become a PhD, right? So it takes years and years and years of constant practice, and sometimes you pass, sometimes you get failure marks, then you work on that subject, again you get pass, and then you keep graduating, right? This is exactly same principle. Right? We should not lose faith or lose heart, saying, "Oh man, no matter how much hard I try, I don't make progress." We are making progress. Every step is a progress in the spirituality. There is no loss at all. Krishna will actually explain later that everything we do is counted towards us. It's as a positive thing. So we should not feel dejected at any point. Yes, we may not observe or feel like we are making great progress, but if we continue to have faith in the process and work on it, we will make progress. Right, on one time, somebody asked Prabhupada, how do I know I have made progress, I have made advancement in spirituality? So Prabhupada said, when you eat food, at some point, your stomach is full. Spirituality is like that. You continue to do this, you will yourself will feel. Others won't feel that whether you're full or not, but you will feel you're full if you are eating. Right? So same way, spirituality is like that. It is very individual. And we cannot judge somebody saying, oh, he is a junior devotee, he is a senior devotee, like that. Somebody coming in and today maybe already a very advanced devotee from previous life. right? A child may be a way advanced devotee than a person 50, 60-year-old coming to the temple, or even not coming to the temple, whatever, right? So, so we cannot judge by somebody's external appearance, saying that they are advanced or not advanced, right? So, because it's so personal, the spirituality is extremely personal, it's internal. And we only know ourselves, how we're making progress and how advanced we are and whatnot. We may not realize, okay, I'm advanced devotee. We may not feel that way because we will always have that doubt. Hey, am I? Even if you are an advanced devotee, you may say still, oh, I still have a lot more to learn. And that is humility. But in principle, that's how devotee. And the other symptom of progress, very important symptom, is we will see some sort of a peace in the mind, even in a climactic situation or a very difficult situation. We will still have some peace, understanding, because that comes through knowledge. That, okay, it is all arrangement from the Lord and everything is happening for my own good. And I'm going through this. I could be even going in worse situation than this, but out of mercy from the Lord, I'm continuing to, be in a reasonable state. That kind of understanding we will start getting as we progress on spirituality. Then we will be able to treat both happiness and distress slowly, may not be perfectly equal, but to some extent. We can at least balance it out, saying, okay, I got a promotion today and my salary is doubled and all that. I am elated. I may be happy a little bit, but we'll still be say, okay, fine. This is again Krishna's mercy. And then next year says, okay, manager dings you. This is okay, again Krishna's mercy. If we start seeing that way, then we will get that equilibrium in life, right? Because as Krishna says, both happiness and distress, both are non-permanent, and they will keep coming again in like summer and winter season, right? It will keep changing, and sometimes the happiness may be longer, sometimes maybe the happiness may be shorter. It doesn't matter. It will always be, they say that happiness is a period in between two distressful situation, right? So it's always be there. So we shouldn't lose heart when we are in a distressful situation. Rather, we should double down on our reviving our relationship with the Lord, because distress comes as a reminder for us that this is not the place to be in. So at that time, that is forcing us to, Maya is forcing us to go to the Lord. So a devotee will go to the Lord, and non-devotee will go away from God, saying, where is God? There is no God. If God is there, why am I suffering? This type of thought will come. So you will become more atheistic in the distressful situation. Either these two paths will happen. So being a devotee, we should double down our effort, our relationship, our faith and prayers and all that. Always, not just only on distressful situation. When we are happy also, we should say, okay, first thing we should do is thank God. You are the one, Krishna, you are the one who made this happen. So I'm very thankful to what you did. And so that's how we should do it. Okay, so yeah.
So if our soul is part of our super soul,
It's not part of super soul. We are in the individual.
okay.
Super soul is there as an individual, and we are there as a soul, as an individual.
Okay.
Like two birds in a tree, right?
Okay. So when we make our decision for something, does soul has a say and super soul has no say?
Super soul has a say in the
Only
sense,
yourself.
yeah, and even super soul has say in everything. If I have to lift my hand, the soul is saying, okay, I want to lift the hand, right? So my mind says, okay, now all the faculties decide to say, okay, lift the hand. But then to lift the hand, I need to have a karma balance. So the super soul will say, check, okay, does this have a karma balance? If yes, then I can lift the hand. There is no, then I can't. That's where, you get into paralysis and all that, which means you don't have balance. So you get stuck. It's like that. So super soul is there, very involved in the sense granting whatever you're deciding.
It keeps the balance.
If you okay, I may desire to become the richest players in the planet, but I don't have karma for that, right? So I can desire. Right. So if you had karma, then you probably will be able to do it. But the karma, you have to have so much pious activities be done, then you become that at some point. Right. So Bill Gates, Elon Musk, and all these guys have so much pious credit that things manifest in this life because they have done so much in their past lives that they get into that environment where the idea comes, ambience comes, all the situation comes together and fuels their growth. Right. So otherwise, even take Facebook as an example. MySpace was there before Facebook. Very successful. But they didn't have this idea of this feed and ads and whatever. He had it. And he was right time, right place. He was able to monetize on it. Capture that, capitalize on that, right? And MySpace doesn't even exist now. So that's the thing, right? So it's karma goes in his favor, and then he was able to rise up. And then recently, I think last year or earlier part of this year, he gave an interview saying that when he wakes up, Zuckerberg, he wrote in Instagram, or he spoke in an interview, that when he wakes up and he sees the messages in his phone, he feels like somebody punches in his gut every day. He feels that way because the European Union is shutting down Instagram or Facebook, or the Senate, there is a hearing in the Senate that to clamp down on social media, or Apple rolled out a privacy update that blocked all the data access, whatever it could be, right? And then the AR is a problem. Oculus did not work. This blah blah. 1,000 reasons could be where he feels that way. What is the point? He has almost a half an island in Hawaii. He has several $billion in his stocks and whatnot, but he feels that way, right? So that's the problem. Material world. You may be the richest guy in the world, but still, Elon Musk gets slammed every day, and his life was happy and he was great until he acquired Twitter. He acquires Twitter and he gets into trouble every day, all the day, right? Anything he says is a problem. He may say right thing, he may say wrong thing, who knows? But then he is in trouble, right? So that's the way material world functions. He had so much good karma that it projected him to become the richest guy, but then there is bad karma also, is suffering for that.
So it also makes me think if you're doing, like, if you're using your good karma in the path of glorifying spirituality, that tends to be, and if there is, like, money making in business is a byproduct. Overall, it's just like if you are actually doing good and functionally, that is more sustainable and probably you won't get that kind of distress if it is from that. The root of that is coming from glorifying spirituality rather than acquiring material possessions.
Yes, because the more material things we possess, the more distress we will get into. Okay, we can see everyday life. Anybody you take, the more wealth they have, the more distress they will be. Okay, so having said that, the best solution to that is somehow, okay, you through your efforts, your past karma and all that, you made some money. Now, what do you do with it? Is a very important question we need to answer, right? If I use it for my own gratification, sense gratification, okay, so I go buy a beach house and I start spending money and partying and all that, then now I'm incurring karma for that. I have to now pay for that.
Is that wrong in any way?
No, think of it. Now I buy a house in the beach.
Okay, that's like your good karma.
You're burning your good karma now. That's one. Along the way, you're earning bad karma with it. Now I'm partying, bringing woman or whatever, alcohol, everything into the house and now partying because I'm gratifying my senses. Because I deserve, if I think like that, I deserve it. I can do whatever I want. I made me money. Why should I care, right? So if I go in that attitude and I blowing money up like that to just gratifying my senses, then you incur karma for that, right? For that, now you have to take birth to burn it. How? You earned a lot of bad debt through that activities. Now you have to suffer. Right? So that is the problem. That is the catch-22 in this material world. So the best solution Prabhupada recommended is live just minimalistic. As minimal as possible. Live with minimalistic needs for your life. And use rest for Krishna's service. Whatever excess you have.
People do like philanthropist work, like such type of that.
Yeah.
So those are like encouraged.
Yes.
Because if they are
yes. Yeah. Now Krishna actually dedicates one chapter for charity. Okay, he talks extensively about the charity. 13, I think, 13 or 14. He talks about it. And basically, the three modes of good nature. In that, he talks about the mode in which we give charity matters. Okay, and he explains different examples, different scenarios in that. Prabhupada also goes in depth on that, saying that because one good example, we will go in that chapter when we read that in depth. But if let's say you're driving to Bellevue and you stop in the signal, and then there's a beggar there. He says, "Okay, no money, please give something." You pull out your wallet and you give $5. Okay, you're giving out of compassion to that person. He takes that $5, goes to a bar and buys a beer, or he goes to McDonald's and buys a chicken and eats it. Now you're going to incur karma.
But if you're given from a mode of goodness,
No, that is where the problem is. Okay.
whereas if we actually ask, like, what would you like to eat?
No,
They say-
instead, the best way, recommended way for such scenarios,
Give them food.
always have some prasadam with you, a fruit or some prasadam, and just give the prasadam to them. That way, you are actually elevating them.
That's why the free food is.
Yes, we go help them. Right? Everybody eats prasadam. Well, at some point in life, they'll become a devotee. If not this lifetime, next lifetime, they'll become a devotee when they eat prasadam. It is a taking time off, actually. It is very, very potent vehicle to elevate souls, prasadam. So we do that, then they get uplifted. That's the best way to do it. Right? And it is, the Lord says, it is very important to know whatever charity you give, how it is utilized. Otherwise, if you are giving it for your own glorification,
For tax purposes.
yeah, for tax purposes or big announcement, oh, I donated this and donated that, and you make announcements and you're just for your own glorification, that is a problem. Okay, so there are many examples the Lord will say, what is in mode of goodness, what is in mode of passion, what is in mode of ignorance, all of that the Lord actually explains. So that's where even giving charity, we have to be careful. That's why Lord spoke this knowledge so that we know what to do, what not to do.
Seems like there's so much things to remember,
Yes,
but seems like if you are on this, at some point it will become second
natural, exactly. Yeah, it'll be just become second nature. Subconsciously, we will attune to it. All our actions will automate. Oh, this is dharmic. This is not dharmic. It'll automatically become clear for that. Right, and that's why we read Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, hear lectures, and so on, so that we equip ourselves with knowledge, so that we guide ourselves. Right, so that's what it is. So we'll read one more verse and then we'll wrap up. Any questions, Padaji? No. Okay, we'll go to the next. Veda vinasinam nityam yayenam ajam avyayam katamsa purusha partha kam gatayati hantiham. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? Right. You want to read it?
Yeah. Everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. Similarly, violence also has its utility, and how to apply violence rests with the person in knowledge. Although the justice of the peace awards capital punishment to a person condemned for murder, the justice of the peace cannot be blamed because he orders violence to another person, according to the codes of justice. In Manu Samhita, the law book for mankind, it is supported that a murderer should be condemned to death so that in his next life he will not have to suffer for the great sin he has committed. Therefore, the king's punishment of hanging a murderer is actually beneficial. Similarly, when Krishna orders fighting, it must be concluded that violence is for supreme justice, and thus Arjun should follow the instruction, knowing well that such violence committed in the act of fighting for Krishna is not violence at all, because at any rate, the man, or rather than the soul, cannot be killed. So for the administration of justice, so-called violence is permitted. A surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient but to cure him. Therefore, the fighting to be executed by Arjuna at the instruction of Krishna is with full knowledge. So there is no possibility of sinful reaction.
Exactly. That's a good point. So this is a good example of, we talked about euthanizing. In this case, if somebody commits a murder and the capital punishment is to hang them to death or whatever that, condemning that to death. The judge, whoever gives that punishment, is not accountable for anything. He is just following the law of the state. Even in Manu Samhita, it is stated that there has to be a punishment for two reasons. One, it helps to maintain law and order in the state, right? So there is otherwise people will do whimsically, killing others and with no consequence to it. Number one. Number two, because they committed such a great sin, they will have to suffer for it. It is better for them to get that suffering in this lifetime itself, so they don't have to suffer for the subsequent lives. Right? So that is why Manu Samhita recommends that they are condemned to death if they commit murder. And we are all the countries follow similar laws, but then there are downside to it, especially implementing that law, because whether they did it or not. Wrongful deaths we see every time. After 20 years in death row, somebody comes and says, "Oh, yeah." Where he was wrongfully convicted because somebody gave a false witness. They end up getting condemned to death, but then it's a problem, right? So implementation is a problem in material world, but in principle, that's what it is. Yes, Mataji, and even in case of Gandhiji, he was against violence. But then there was a utility for violence in to maintain peace, right? So because of that, he promoted the so-called non-violence. Thousands and thousands of, hundreds and thousands of Hindus, and even Muslims died in the partition time, right? Had there been proper security arrangement was made and things like that, then it could have been minimized, right? So that is where violence is important, and also to unify the country. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel used the military to bring everybody under order, right? So things like that. There is a place for violence in every society, but it has to be justified with proper reasoning and proper. It should be done in the welfare of all, right? So that is how. But human beings, obviously, they tend to make mistakes, which means it gets implemented wrongly. I was just reading an article about this guy Henry Kissinger. He was I don't know if you know him. So he was a Secretary of State for U.S. in during Richard Nixon's period, and I think he was also for Secretary of State for Reagan, I think, during that time. Extremely influential guy. Okay, he actually the one defined the foreign policy for America, basically, and drove this sort of dominance, world dominance through foreign policy. He was the guy behind it. He even won Nobel Prize for peace. Okay, because he brought the Vietnam War to a closure. However, there is a dark side to him. The dark side is the rebels in Vietnam were actually crossing into Cambodia and hiding there. And then they come into the Vietnam and they attack American soldiers there, and they were causing that type of thing. So they started bombing Cambodia whimsically. Okay. They didn't do anything wrong, but they got bombed. And one report says that they dropped 2 million tons of bomb in Cambodia. The whole World War II, they used 2 million tons of bombs. That much bomb was dropped into Cambodia. And so many innocent people died. And not just that, then it actually fermented a situation where ethnic cleansing started after that. The Khmer Rouge came in and they started killing almost 1.7 million people got slaughtered through this ethnic cleansing. He was the root cause for all that. Right? So, yeah, he maybe got a Nobel Prize for something, but then he was as a person being root cause for a major destruction elsewhere. Right? So, so that's the problem with the humans. That you may be doing one thing right for somebody, but then they may be wrong for another set of people. Right?
So it's hard to see the overall picture. And here Arjuna was actually guided by
Krishna to see the whole.
So it was like,
yeah, the Lord is giving him the whole knowledge, why he should do, why, and it is justified by the Lord, which means there cannot be a downside to it, because it's the Lord's wish.
and their bad karma has gone so much that the murder.
It is better to cleanse them of this, kill them here, so that they can all get rid of all their sins. Yeah, so there's a lot of nuances to it. When we look at it at a surface level, then we say, oh, why Krishna justified this war? But then as you start learning more and more in depth, then we'll come to the same conclusion as Arjuna. Okay, it makes sense. This is why the Lord is saying to do it.
Yeah, I think everyone else is fine, but I think for Bhishma, Dronacharya and Karan, there is like a very sharp boundary, like they were the person who knew
Krishna,
dharma,
yeah,
still.
they were stood on the wrong side of the.
Yeah.
Because they see, there are reasoning for it, right? One is Bhishma, he took a vow that he is going to defend the king of Hastinapur.
Yeah, but he's choosing a dharma versus
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
it's still his choice.
Yes. Yes. So because he gave weightage for his vow than the dharma itself, right? That's one. And then the other aspect you can see is he also wanted to please the Lord in the Virya Rasa, being an opponent fighting with the Lord, to give a pleasure for the Lord in that way, right? Because he is actually one of the Mahajan, like there are 12 Mahajans. Mahajan means the guy who has understood the Lord, has a very close relationship with the Lord, right? Prahlad Maharaj is one, Bhishma is one, Narad Muni is one, like that. There are 12 Mahajans are there. So he's at that level. So he knew that this was the Supreme Lord. And he chose that way so that he can entertain the Lord by fighting with him. So, yeah, there's a lot of interesting twists to this. Everyone having their own reasoning for that. Okay, so we'll stop here today. Mataji, any question or anything you want to call out?
Thank you, Prabhuji, for today's session.
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah, so we'll continue next week. Next week, I will actually explain the Tulsi Vivag background story. It's actually very interesting. I will explain next week. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.